Welcome to the Consulting Leaders Podcast, where we talk about the business of consulting. Whether you're looking to grow your practice or learn from the stories of leaders in consulting, you're in the right place. I'm your host, Guillaume Jouvencel, ex-PwC and co-founder of GHA Marketing. Join me as I interview the best consultants in their niche. Let's get on with the show. Ross, welcome to Consulting Leaders. Very happy to have you.
Thank you. Good to be here.
Let's jump straight into it. What's the story, Ross? What got you into consulting and how did packaging and supply chain become your focus?
So what got me into it? So by kind of profession, I'm a packaging engineer. I was working within a CPG company. Very originally, I was a quality engineer in pharmaceuticals, but started in packaging with that. Moved into CPG, consumer packaged goods, realized that packaging was a bit of a roundabout in terms of you kind of go through cycles of development. And then one day the company brought in some consultants who came in to find efficiencies and cost savings. I thought that was a super interesting thing to do. I picked up some of their brief and delivered it, which I, again, really enjoyed doing. And then a few months later, I saw this is going back a while, but the printed versions of Packaging Week magazine, there was a photograph of these guys sitting in their cool office talking about their international programs. So I badgered them for 6 months to get a job, and I became a consultant. So worked for a couple of consultancies, a few years at each, and long story short, myself and another guy decided we would start our own. So that's the origins of the James Ross was the two names of the two founders. James moved on fairly quickly afterwards, but yeah, it's kind of gone on from there. So we are 33 years coming up now, I think. So yeah, it's been a while. It's been a journey.
I absolutely love this. There are many things in your story that I like. I like everything, obviously. But one, I decided to partner with my co-founder, who happens to be my best friend as well, who's Sam, who is an engineer by training as well. And he was working at Procter & Gamble before we decided to go on our own. He was actually working on the packing line as well. So that's funny. And in GHA, there is actually a letter that corresponds to an early partner who moved on as well. So curious to know a little bit more about that story, but I'll tell you mine off the record. What's the problem that you solve now, Ross? What is it that you help people achieve?
There's a number of things. The primary one is we reduce cost, we improve profit. So that's the kind of entry level thing you would expect from a consultant. We come in and drive efficiencies. So that's whether that's reducing the cost of packaging, whether that's reducing the cost of transportation, whether that's improving process efficiencies, whether that's reducing damage or losses. It's about cost. It's always about driving monetary value. So everyone thinks packaging is a burden. Everyone thinks it's a necessary evil, and everyone thinks it's too expensive and too complex. So we come in and try to navigate ways where they can see what the values are, what they should be, where they're efficient, where they're not, and we deliver cost savings. And we have kind of morphed from doing just materials into more the kind of end-to-end supply chain process. We also do quite a lot around the sustainability piece. There's the whole story in there. But yeah, in essence, it's about making things work more effectively. So that's the kind of core consulting piece. We do the analytics. We also then deploy to do the delivery. So we put boots on the ground to accelerate and deliver savings for clients. And quite often our guys stay in the clients delivering projects. We are very often with clients for 10 plus years. again, it's all based on value. So some of that is running projects that they then initiate, and others are ones that we have developed ourselves. So it's a bit of a mix, but the core, the simple answer to your question is money. We save them money.
I love that TLDR at the end, which is quite on spot and makes a lot of sense. And I like that you got to break down a bit the offer so we understand how you're helping people save money. A few things. We've had actually recently a couple of consultants who are in the cost saving space as well, different industries, different niches, different targeting. But in essence, the endeavor is pretty much the same. I'm curious, like some of them were fully performance based, meaning you pay zero until we get you some savings, and then we get a good portion of the savings as a payday. We've had a guest, I think it was last week, who explained how he was signing an engagement with something paid up front, with then like performance bonus based on the savings achieved. But if there were no savings, they were refunding the initial engagements as well. How do you, without getting into the technicals, Ross, but in terms of offer, how do you guys work? Is it purely performance based? Do you also have engagements because there's going to be analytics along with it? How do you position that?
It's a really good question, and again, it's one that's evolved over time. Some hard lessons learned along the way. So we do not do performance based as such. What we tend to do is sell in stages. So we will say, okay, look, we believe that there's an opportunity here. Depending on how that's going to go, we can either deploy some of our software and demonstrate the opportunity, or we can just use track record and talk about what they need. We then do a small stage of work to actually get in and do some analysis, so looking at real data. So we pick a small piece of the business, or we pick something that's a defined range, and for a relatively low cost, we come in and do that work. We can also then identify some quick win opportunities, and then the next phase of work is deliver the quick wins. So the project has got cash in it, and expand the analysis, expand the development of the program. So it becomes self-funding very quickly. We give clients return on investment figures that we've tracked over time. So we normally pay back within a year. It's normally within a few months that they are cash positive. But we don't do performance based as such. One anecdote, I will not name the client, but we did a piece of work for a client. We were getting a percentage of the value of the annual savings. We were retained by their procurement group. One of the savings was super simple. They did a very high volume pack. It was beverage. It was in North America. They put 4 bottles in a case, which made a square case, which was never good, but I won't bore you with why that's never good. But they did millions of these things. And all we did was open a little gap up in the box. We just made the flaps a little bit shorter. I think it saved them something like, it was hundreds of thousands of dollars, hundreds of thousands. So we were in for a payday from it. And the procurement guy said, well, we're not paying you for that. It's far too simple. You know, that's just too easy. And well, that was the deal, and you weren't doing it before. The message was, we're a big multinational. You want to deal with us, suck it up. So I was like, okay, that's fine. We'll suck it up, but we're not doing performance related anymore. So we moved the platform, and we've not done it since. No, we are pay and play. But as I say, we tend to do small stages to builds confidence, builds network, gives us access to data. Then it's, okay, we're going to deliver the quick wins, and we're going to start working on some of these more complex things, or we're going to start to expand into other parts of the business or other regions or other markets, because we work globally. So yeah, that's kind of how we set up. It is different if it's a technical support piece. That's just a per diem kind of platform. So we put people in just to support projects. So there's 2 different models, but those are primarily the way that we cost things. And we don't get pushback, really. I think people do get that. Performance related is also complex because, what are you measuring? Next year's sales or this year's sales or last year's sales? And, again, we don't control that. So yeah, that's how we do it. Long answer to a simple question.
This is why I love the podcast format, because we can take the time to have long answers to simple questions, which is the whole point. I like this. And I think if I were to do it, or if I were to think of a way to market it and position the offer, that's probably how I would do it. One of the guests, and obviously not going to name them, but we had a discussion afterwards, and that the problem with being, in his case, he was fully performance-based, but I suspect this is also happening if you're partially performance-based. Now, you'll be risking it, so there is this appeal. But being fully performance-based actually removes a bit of the perceived value before you sign, or even when you sign, to actually take action. You didn't pay for it, so you're going to put this on the back burner. Eventually, you're going to do it because it's a nice to have if you have time. But because you didn't have to pay for it, you're not going to take immediate action, or you're not going to see it as valuable. Although I genuinely believe that there are potential hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars in savings to be achieved. But the perception of something's value is almost as important as its value itself. So yeah, I like the positioning.
I agree. I do agree with that. We've had that conversation internally many times. If you do it for free, it has no value. It will not get traction. And if the client isn't prepared to put something up, then they're not really engaged. That definitely resonates.
So tell us a bit more about who you serve specifically with this service. I suspect, because of your background, you're going to have some ties and affinities with certain industries. But in your case, is there a specific niche, industry, company size, decision maker that you're trying to reach and that you need to get into the room with to sell your consulting services?
Well, that's a number of questions in one go. In terms of the companies, we don't have any affiliations with any particular industry, nor are we tied. We're fully independent. We're not. It's interesting. We operate in North America, and quite often, if you're badged as a consultant, it means you're an agent for several different suppliers, and so you go in to solve a problem, which is we'll sell you this. So we're totally independent. We are there just to serve the client and to act in the best interest of the client. The clients are global CPG companies. You mentioned Procter & Gamble. That's a previous client. But we've done everything from pharmaceuticals to beverage to bathtubs to you name it. It's anything that's packaged. Typically at volume, at scale. It does lead us on to one of the challenges, which is who do we target in that business? So packaging is a really weird thing because some companies see it as a procurement function and its purpose is to reduce cost. Some people see it as a R&D function and its purpose is to innovate. Some people see it as a design function and its purpose is to be creative. So it depends, and quite often packaging doesn't carry much of a budget. So you're normally looking for the internal customer of the internal packaging team to kind of unlock budgets. So that's typically operational or R&D or supply chain. We have worked with finance, we have worked with marketing, but typically it's that operational supply chain procurement piece that would fund us. So we're targeting those people within the organization who are looking to see how they can leverage not just the packaging, but also how the packaging interacts with the business, the supply chain elements, about being more agile or being faster to market or being more efficient or more sustainable. So one of the challenges we have is navigating who it is we're pitching to and then getting the message right, because you don't send the same message to a finance person that you might send to an R&D person.
I like that, and I'm actually curious to double down on this. When I was a consultant myself at PwC, when we didn't have a clue of what we were doing, with a podcast that we launched independently from PwC. But at the end of the day, we found out that if we found a way to get in touch with the group treasurers, who are the ones that we were working with, and reporting to the CFO, as long as we had their buy-in, they would, as much as reasonably possible, they would push for working with us. Now, of course, the entry door could be sometimes the head of tax, the head of legal, the CFO themselves, CEO, if there was something specific to be done, but the group treasurer is really where the decision-making was happening. For you, Ross, who would that be? Like, who do you need to get into a room with most of the time to get your sponsor within the company and then get an onboarding if there is a project to be had? Who's that ultimate decision maker? Again, a long-winded question with many questions within, so I'm going to stop here and I'm going to let you answer.
I think if you're PwC, you have already if you look at the big five sort of consulting groups, they everybody knows who they are, and those senior managers in organizations will naturally understand how that works. We're a niche boutique packaging and supply chain type consultancy, so they wouldn't necessarily know us from Adam. They wouldn't know what we do necessarily. So it is about finding somebody who understands what we offer. And as I say, it is typically, increasingly, it's supply chain and operations because of our software, our PacDev Pro software, which targets process that supply chain efficiency. So we're kind of morphing more towards that, just because it's very tangible and something we can demonstrate value really quickly in. But it really does depend. I mean, we've worked for finance, we've worked for marketing. As I say, it really depends what the ask is. If we're pitching, we would typically go for ops director, ops VP, supply chain VP, R&D. We wouldn't normally go for the CFO as such, because, as I say, I don't think it would resonate with them necessarily. They wouldn't necessarily see the connection between packaging as a service function. It's probably I'm not sure that they would see it. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. Maybe we're missing a huge trick, but that's kind of how we work.
There is this thing that when I see someone being in the same industry, the same business for multiple decades, I tend to believe they've understood a thing or two about their industry and their business, Ross. So I don't think there is anything you miss. It's just interesting to see and feel how different people approach this biz dev aspect and this, who do I need to get into the room with? And as you broaden your network, obviously, and we see it with many, many consultants, the entry door can be a bit everybody within the company, as long as you end up with the one who will be benefiting the most from your services, I guess. So no, that does make a lot of sense.
I can add to one of the other routes that we've, so the big five consultancies, we've now worked with a number of them where they're bringing us in to their clients because they don't have, so packaging, sustainability, supply chain agility are very, very hot topics at the moment. And they don't have that detailed skill set in-house. They have people who are very good at analytics, they're very good at business process, but the mechanics of it, they don't necessarily have. So we've worked with, I won't name them, but 3 or 4 out of the big five. So there's another route for us as well to kind of get in as part of a bundle, if you like. So that's something that's evolving at the moment as well. And that's also giving us a much higher profile within those client organizations. So it's an evolving picture.
Yeah, that does make a lot of sense. Let's talk about this very branding and marketing then. What has worked for you guys to get the attention of those different companies, those different actors, those different decision makers? I mean, working with P&G is not small deed, right? So they have a procurement process, which is quite heavy. Hussam and I would know. So what has worked for you to get the attention of potential buyers? I'm not talking yet about sales. I'm really talking about branding, marketing, getting the message out there and getting potential clients to knock on the door and being like, Ross, I might be interested into your services. What has worked for you guys?
Well, it's a very well-timed question because traditionally it's been network people. You do a good job. You track people. You stay in touch with people. You make contacts. You know, they support your project. The project is successful. We get paid. They look good. They move on through their organizations. They like working with us. So traditionally, the vast majority of our business has come through word of mouth. It's come through reputation. It's come through network. However, last year, I signed up to go back to management school and did a business growth program at Granfield, which was illuminating and was talking a lot about marketing. So one of the things we have done is begun to invest in a properly structured marketing function. Astonishingly, after all of these decades, we've spent peanuts on marketing. We've just relied on network. So we're now looking at organization and structure, how we leverage LinkedIn, how we run a proper CRM tool, HubSpot, how we use Google. So we're in the foothills. We've redone our website. So I'm really intrigued to see if that investment bears fruit. We've already landed one prospective client, which if that comes through, will have covered the whole budget in one go. So I'm inclined to think it's a good thing. Who knew marketing was a good thing?
Not me.
So that's a journey we're just starting on. It doesn't stop any of the other things that we do. And the guys who work in James Ross Consulting, most of them have been, multiple years with us. I've been around since, a long time, 33 years now. So we have a very good network. You meet people all the time. Packaging's a small world. And that's both in our North America business and here we've been in the US for 23 years as well. So we're well known, it's reputation. That's the core selling platform. But as I say, we're in the process of trying to develop something and start to actually run some campaigns. But it is really tricky because, I'm now being asked by the people we've brought in to say, well, who do we target? So, well, it depends what the message is. So we are looking at how we tie that up, because it isn't just people. If you say packaging cost savings, they think you just want to make it cheaper. You're just going to devalue it. And you're not. You're just making it more efficient. Sometimes you do something that costs more, but it sells more. It's about value. It's about net business value. So getting the message out is going to be interesting. And I'm intrigued to see how the next 12 months runs we're 2 months into having a marketing function. So so far so good. But so it's a timely question.
I'm gonna double down on this because I think this is interesting. And just so we are clear, talking to a lot of B2B coaching and consulting firm owners, having a marketing function is being ahead of 80% of your competitors, Ross. So kudos to you for that. So I'm asking this question in the sense of I think what you're doing is already great because you're doing something and you're testing. Talk to me about how, after 33 years in business, you're thinking about that. Where do you start? What do you think about first? I like that question that those marketing people you brought in asking, hey, who are we targeting? Well, it depends on the message. But then where do you start? Are you thinking, okay, we want to start with this message and therefore we will target this type of people? Or is it more, we need to target those people and therefore that will be the message? What channel are you thinking about? I'm asking this because there will be people listening to us, maybe even right now, who are at the same stage as you, thinking about starting marketing, or who just started and who are how are people like me thinking about this endeavor? So what is it for you? How do you approach starting a marketing function after 33 years in business?
So we brought in somebody here in the UK to do it. And they basically asked us a lot of questions and started building a marketing plan, a strategy. Talking to our US team, they looked at that strategy and said, well, it's fine, but this is North America. The US is different. The language is different. And it's even things like spelling and how you present numbers in the US. If you want to look like a US business, you need to sound like a US business. You need to have terms of reference that are US, and particularly in the current political climate that we're in, it's even more important to kind of present yourself in the right way. So we took on a marketing person in the US as well, and she's linking in. So we now have a marketing group, and our colleague in the US is kind of changing the flavor, if you like, of the marketing message, and even the way that you approach people. LinkedIn is great in Europe. It's not as powerful in North America. Google AdWords is a much more powerful platform. Or so we're told. We're about to find out, because we're running a series of initiatives, and we'll be able to evaluate what's working well and what isn't. And then in terms of who you're targeting, so we've come up with a range of job titles, roles and responsibilities. We've come up with a range of companies. So we've done our research on high-performing CPG companies in North America and in Europe, and globally, because we do work around the world. Some of whom we've already worked with. So you think, well, okay, who's a previous client? Some of whom will have people in them. They may not be previous clients, but the people who are working there are previous clients. So we've kind of been doing that data build. And then it's a question of building the messages out to say, okay, so if it's a new person in a new company, it's this. If it's a person we know in a new company, it's this. If it's an old company with a person we know, it's that, and so on and so forth. And it is about what's important at the moment. What are the burning issues? So again, sustainability, very high profile in Europe, not such a high profile in the US at the moment. That isn't the message that people are going to bite on. They're going to bite on cost, because there's a cost of living. There's volatility in the market because of tariffs. A lot of American companies manufacture in other countries and import. So their cost base is uncertain at the moment. So packaging and how you handle those goods, how they're brought inbound, how they're manipulated, how they're repacked, that is where the money is. And then we've got trends in retail, which is, again, I talk about repack, up something like 40%, 30 to 40% of a lot of consumer packaged goods in Europe are getting repacked at the moment to meet retailer needs. If you look in markets like Germany and Eastern Europe, a lot of stores look like Aldi and Lidl, so they want mixed cases and they want displays, which means you're manipulating your inventory. There's a lot of that done in the US for different channels as well. So there's different stories, there's different pressure points. Then you look within the organization, then you look at who may or may not be the most responsible person for that, whose desk is that landing on as a cost. And you go with that. So it's suck it and see. It is a bit of experience, and it's a bit of logic. And yeah, that's there's no secret sauce. There's no magic formula. You just have to spread your net and see how that message resonates.
Amen to that. No, really, I mean, I think you have. So to maybe just give my 2 cents here, and hopefully this will be helpful for the audience as well. I think you have one big advantage. It's the network but anyone builds after 33 years in business. So I would try and think, how do we leverage that in our marketing endeavors to be like, not just the next ads for, cost-saving consultants, but more like, we've been helping people for 33 years. We might be able to help you. How do we leverage that best? And then how do we develop a marketing? So it's a marketing mix, obviously, but how do we go first after the channels that allow us to leverage this network the best? That's the few things I would probably bear in mind. I think you have the right methodology, right? It's going to be about testing, iterating, see what works, see what doesn't, do more of what works, do less of what doesn't. Pretty straightforward. Talk to me about, and we've spent a lot of time on marketing, but I love it. I'm a bit biased. Talk to me about retention, Ross. How do you, especially with cost savings, once the analysis is done, potentially the costs have been saved, the new vendors, providers are selected and in place, it's not like there is much upsell room here. So how do you think about retention, continuing a relationship with the clients, transforming one engagement into another and into another and into another? How do you guys go about that, if at all?
Well, no, retention is the key. We make our profit from being retained within the clients and working with them on a sustained basis. So it isn't as binary as just saying, okay, we found some cost savings, go out and buy this. We're looking end to end. We're looking at process. So how do you receive goods? How do they fit to your lines? How are your machines working? How does that interact with your planning? And how's that changing over time? How do you then handle that into your distribution and supply chain network? How does that go to a customer? How's that impacting sustainability? These are dynamic questions. They're not a one-off fix. It's a moving picture. And you layer into that different products, different channels, different sales cycles, different brand cycles. So there's always something to go look at. There's always something that you can do more with. But the other value add that we have is because whilst we're consulting to them, we are also engineers. Everybody in the business is a project manager. So we actually can come in and say, well, we've identified it, we've validated it. You've actually got to deliver that now. Now, you guys all have day jobs. We do not have a day job. So why don't we come in and just do that, because we can do it quicker. It also means that while we're delivering this, that even more high value area that we talked about, why don't we do a little bit of deep diving into that and maybe do some stress testing on it and maybe just see how that might work for the future. So it's iterative in terms of building, always building value. Sometimes that's just, as I say, it's a mix of boots on the ground, and it's just being in and looking at what else you can do, looking at where else you can squeeze. So it's why we tend to stay there for a long time. And equally, our clients will have different divisions. So you move from, hair care to personal to home cares to beverage to food, snacks to whatever it might be. So it depends. Once you're in, it's about just, as long as you're always delivering value, then why not? Why should you stop? So that's really what the message we push, which is, if this is working, then let's keep doing it. And sometimes we go away and come back again. But we have been super lucky in that we've had astonishingly good clients. They see the value and they keep using us because they know we'll deliver. And to your earlier point about marketing, we have a slide that just has the names of the people we've worked with over the years. And it's awesome. We're very credible. So, can we do what we say we're going to do? Well, yeah, clearly we can. Because look who's used us, and we've been doing it for 30 years. And if you want to go talk to them, please do. So that's kind of how it works. It's kind of full service in that sense. It's not just identifying it and then throwing it over the fence. It's deliver. We deliver the saving. We deliver the value. Again, another long answer to your question.
This is what I love, Ross. Couldn't have said it better. Ross Collins, ladies and gentlemen. Ross, if people want to find out more about you, see what you do, where should they go?
Well, we are jrconsulting.com. So that's probably the easiest, or they can reach out to me directly on my email, which is just ross@jrconsulting.com. Happy to talk through. And that extends to other consultants. I learned something when I did the business growth program, which is, we're not islands here. It's good to talk to each other and share learnings. we're good at the things we're good at. Turns out we weren't very good at the things we didn't know about. So yeah, you never know. So it's always good to talk.
The famous, you know what you don't know. There is a thing that you know that you don't know, and there are things that you don't know that you don't know.
That's it.
Loved it. We'll put all the links in the description. I believe for what we are concerned, we are already connected on LinkedIn. That's at least one new connection from this new marketing endeavor for you, Ross. Thank you so much for coming on Consulting Leaders.
Thanks, Ian. Thank you. It's a pleasure.
Thanks for joining us on this episode of the Consulting Leaders Podcast. We hope you learned valuable lessons on how to grow your practice and take your business to the next level. Make sure to subscribe and leave us a review wherever you're listening to this show so you never miss an episode. To apply and be a guest on the show, click the link in the description. See you next time.